physical education program. So what will happen, what was supposed to happen and become sort of a static, lovely exhibit of physical education is now morphed into an interactive recordings, videos, artifacts, kind of an exhibit, which we are currently still working on, but to which you have all contributed. And if you haven't yet, you will be asked to. So we love your stories, and that'll be a lot of what we do today. And we love the pictures and everything too, but really, we love your stories. And so that has been sort of what I've been doing over the last year and a half. But I wanted to get you together so that you could share your stories with one another and share your stories with our students so that they could learn from the joy and the work that you did in the past. So that's what today's all about. Hopefully we'll have another one of these in a couple of years where we show you the exhibit. Just picture, you know, League of Their Own, remember League of Their Own, like at the end when they're walking through those exhibits and they're that's gonna be us, like in a couple of years, right? That's gonna be us. Okay, so that's just, hope you're okay over there. Let's just run through the history just a little bit, because I don't think our students know this. Maybe they do, but this is the best. So sorry.
We're
sorry about
losing
those words.
pictures
I'll
of
just read some
people.
of this
Sally's no
to you.
longer a picture,
The thing
and
that
neither
strikes
is
me about
Eunice.
this one is
I
that
turned my
we were
video
first
off.
Invited
Oh.
to university in 1863. Let's just think about that for a second. We became a state in 1848. University became a university in 1850 and 1852. I don't know. Anyway, not soon after that, right? So what happened was these women were invited to campus, and immediately there was this issue of their health, because, you know, in 1863, women were fragile, and so they had to be cared for. So there was this immediate issue. Well, these women turned that around into like, yes, we want to be healthy, but we want to move. So almost immediately, this sort of movement toward, no pun intended, movement of women on campus began. So in 1863, love it. So the problem was there was nowhere for them to move, right? This was a campus mostly for men. All these women started showing up. They were very interested in becoming healthier. There was no place to go. So this building no longer exists, but right on the hill, a building was built for them called the South Building, the South Building. And that's where the women were able to go and get healthy at the start. This is I don't know that this is actually that building, but it looks more to me like Lathrop. It does, right? So I think, but yes, anyway, so they had a building. Unfortunately, South Hall burned down, which caused a problem again. And so what was happening then over the years, these women kept coming to campus, and there was a greater interest in sports, and especially for women, they were starting to sort of push against this, you know, being. Yeah, Betty, you're crazy. Yeah. So, yeah, don't tell my students that. It's all they need to hear.
It's not there anymore.
No, it is. You're okay. They'll find a pool, believe me. But yeah, so what happened then is people started, we have this issue, we have this problem. Also, there was someone really important who came to campus during this time, whose name I'm sure you all know, and whose portrait is gracefully guiding us right now. So Blanche Trilling came to campus to deal with this women's issue. Blanche Trilling, if you got a chance to know her, or if you know anything about her, she was a tiger. And she was like, hey, you know, we really need to do something for these women, and we need a place to do it. So she started to lobby, and ultimately led to the building of Lathrop Hall, which for many of you probably was your home for physical education. It was a beautiful building at the time, and it solved sort of the problem of women not having a space. Yes, so that is the pool. The women's building, right? Crazy. So yeah, so President Burge characterized the women's gymnasium as ridiculously inadequate, and then Lathrop was built. It was built in the 1909-1910 school year, and then the first graduating class for physical education left this campus in 1911. 1911, unbelievable, just crazy. Still a beautiful. Right, yes, amazing, amazing, beautiful building. So in the 20s, Blanche had, some vision, which is fantastic. I love this. She claimed that hordes no longer petition for rest, Jim, but instead a girl feels rather aggrieved when commanded to take it. Who talks like that anymore? I love that. It's so great. So she was like, we have to make this into a major, and she established this major based on her understanding of physical education at the time. before Ruth came in, someone else came into this campus because Blanche was brilliant. And she decided not only did we need to have traditional physical education here, we needed to incorporate dance. So she schlepped off to the East Coast and she got Margaret Dobler to come to this campus and started a movement, again, pun intended, to incorporate dance into the physical education program. Just fantastic. And that unity stayed together with physical education well into the 80s. So just a fantastic add to the program. Ruth Glasso also joined the faculty. Exactly, I heard she wasn't actually a faculty member, but what an important part of the program here, and many of you probably remember her or remember her work, just a terrific person. And I just want to show of hands, how many of you ever went to her house? Went to her house? Saw the drop-down bed? Is this true? Okay, we're going to talk about traditions that we liked in the past, but this is one I really want to hear about, was going to her house for dinners and picnics, right? And to plant her garden. Is this true also? Yep. So I have a garden. I'm just saying. We're going to talk. In the 1950s, and Betty, here's your picture that you're talking. No, this isn't your picture, but you have one similar. So I got some great memories from some people that just shared some of these, and you maybe saw these when you went through, but you know, basketball was half court because it was too strenuous for women to run all the way up and down, you know. But their what might fall out? I don't want to say this out loud. Their uterus might fall out. Okay, well, did it happen to anyone? Everybody okay? All right, that's good. But really interesting programs. The Dolphins were here. That was a really fun program. A lot of you probably remember that. Ski class on Bascom Hill. I definitely want you to be telling that to our students. Marching class with Marie Lisa. There's some fun memories you probably have about that. Gymnastics, you know, in Lathrop Hall with the flying rings and just so many cool things. Kitty Rhythms, an annual banquet that is another tradition I hope we can talk about. This is one of my favorites, is the overnight in Lathrop. And I don't want to blow the story for everybody, but I want you to talk about that at your tables when we talk about that later. And then the curriculum and measurement courses, especially the biomechanics courses, crazy ahead of its time. Just terrific. Yep. Oh. So during this time, the men were sort of running a parallel program, which was very much focused on athletics. So they were really focused on coaching and becoming better athletes. And women continued on really with a very scientific background. And so at some point, the chancellor was like, look, you can't have two PE programs on this campus. You have to put them together. I don't really think everyone was happy, or maybe even anyone was happy about this, but there was a call to merge those two programs. And in doing that, a new building was built, which is the natatorium, which was initially the men's facility. And then the women were, I think, allowed sort of not very, I don't know if they were really welcome at the start, but they were eventually allowed to go over and take classes there too. And the men came over, so the men could come over for dance and then the women could go over maybe once in a while. Yeah, ultimately they did. And as if you've been around campus, or you've driven around campus, you saw that the NAT is no longer there. So the kinesiology department is now in the old hospital. We're kind of like in a temporary location right now. And the building that was at the NAT is now a new rec well building. So it'll just be used for recreation. It's a lovely building. And we are waiting for our turn for a new building, possibly right next to that building. So kind of near to Jope, if you've taken a sort of walk around campus. But that was built in 1965. It was the first time there were classes at the NAT. Leonard Larson, bless his heart, was the guy that had to like deal with both of these two programs. So I heard he did a nice job. I don't know. I wouldn't have wanted to be him. In the 1960s, I know there were lots of things that happened in the 60s besides the NAT going up. But Lawrence Rarick was here at that time and also was given a lead role in combining these two programs. And I know that this doesn't talk so much about the women, but I did want to highlight that because one of our faculty members just got the award, the Lawrence Rarick Award. So Dr. Kalumna was just given that award this year. So I just thought that would be a nice, yeah. Another person who was well ahead of his time and, just did wonderful work. So. In the 70s, yeah, there were pictures, again, biomechanics, and we were, again, so far ahead of our time, like looking at these images and doing calculations to try to figure out how could we better help people move effectively. And then also this time, the Vietnam War was going on, and there were protests on campus, there were protests in Lathrop. I mean, it was a crazy time to be here. So for those of you that were here then, thank you for your time here and for staying, frankly. In the 80s, the programs continued to combine. I don't remember if you know the Bowers, if you knew Pete Bauer, he was here when I first came. Yeah, yeah. And so this is a picture of him. And again, the programs were starting to like try to bring their best together. I think the women's science and a lot of the men's athletics, and they were just trying to combine and ultimately became the Department of Kinesiology, under which the umbrella we still are. And in the 1990s, we became kinesiology. The PE department at that time was a sub option. So you wouldn't even get a PE degree anymore. You got like a kinesiology degree with a sub option of a sub option that said physical education. We have reinstated the physical education program as a major. So now when you graduate, you guys, BSP all the way. So we'll be there. And then this is just a sort of a kind of, here's what we're doing now. So I will say the hardest thing about my job after I learned about this history was, holy cow, like the bar is very high. You were so far ahead of your time. I mean, the work that was done here was ridiculously fantastic. And I felt a lot of pressure. But I think our staff has really worked together to identify a way that we can become one of those programs that's still running ahead of the curve. And so we no longer focus just on physical education. We focus on physical, cognitive, and social and emotional education. We teach the whole child through movement activities. And so these folks right here they're going out into the world to transform physical education. Yeah. It's fantastic. Okay, so I told you there would be homework, and there is now going to be homework. I'm going to step away. So I had you sit at tables with representative decades
We had rovers finally.
Yeah, I remember that too.
I remember rovers too.
Yep.
And I remember volleyball, you only scored a few.
Cindy's talking up front of
serving.
me. So
Now
What
it's,
if what?
you only scored when you were serving in volleyball. And
That's
we
right, I'd forgotten that
now,
too.
now they score when they're
Right,
not serving.
but I think this would be a wonderful group of people to write about. So
And I
It's
remember
amazing.
when the first butterfly swimming stroke came in, because
Thanks
I
so
was.
much, Cindy. It's great to be here, and thank you all for being here to celebrate this great occasion. I want to talk just a little bit about the teacher pledge, which is what Cindy was alluding to. And some of you, I think, know something about this, but I bet many of you don't. So in a nutshell, here's what it is. In August of 2020, we announced a new initiative called the Teacher Pledge, which says to all of our teacher ed students in any of our 15 different programs. So we have a lot of teacher ed. We have physical education, we have math education, we have art education, elementary education, special education, math education, and the list goes on. So to any of our students who are in any of our teacher ed programs, we said, we will make you a deal. If you pledge to stay in Wisconsin to teach after you finish your teacher education for either 3 years or 4 years, it would be 3 years if you were teaching in a high need school or 4 years if you're not. Then we pledge to pay your tuition while you're in teacher education, all your testing fees and all your licensing fees. And the reason we did that is because we are really interested in attracting more people into teaching and keeping people in Wisconsin. We worry about the teacher shortage across the country, but we really worry about the teacher shortage in Wisconsin. So the teacher pledge had a couple of main goals. One was, let's get more people in teacher education. Cindy and I were just talking about the fact that 2 years ago at this time, there were 23 students in the PE teacher education program. Today, there are 40. In 2 years, huge increase. Here's another example. A year ago, when we asked the freshmen coming in, how many of you want to be elementary ed teachers? We had a number that was, I think, about 90 or something. This is of the freshman class. This year, 200. And so we think the teacher pledge is working to cause more people to come into teacher education. We've already graduated 265 students from the teacher pledge, and they're teaching in 65 districts all over Wisconsin. So we know that students are staying in Wisconsin. We're trying to get them very special professional development. So we had some PE teachers this summer with us for the Early Career Teacher Institute. They were here a whole week. And we have the National Teacher of the Year here who gave this incredibly inspirational speech. And they had a whole week to, work with their colleagues and to learn from faculty members. It was really exciting. Next summer, we think it's going to be 150. The summer after that, 250. So we want to do whatever we can to provide ongoing professional development. We know that the salaries for teachers in Wisconsin are low, and we can't do anything directly to raise the salaries. But if we can reduce student debt, that raises the standard of living. It's our way of doing the equivalent of raising salaries. So the biggest reason we're doing this is if we pay the tuition, then students don't have to take out loans to pay the tuition. And we think that's really a game changer. We also have a group doing an independent study to see if this is working. And what we're hoping is that if it works, we can convince the Wisconsin legislature to take this up, not just for UW-Madison, but for all the teacher prep programs in the state. We are paying for this totally with private money. Alums and friends of the School of Education have contributed $25 million to this initiative. And we're really excited about that, and we're really thrilled to have the support. But we know that there's no way to keep that going into perpetuity. And quite frankly, we shouldn't have to, right? Having enough teachers in our schools is part of the public mission of what we should be doing. It should be something that we're supporting with tax dollars. And so I'm very enthusiastic about the fact that the teacher pledge, if it continues to work, may be something that we can get the state legislature to pick up. And just a couple of weeks ago, I had a conversation with a major staff member for the Senate Majority Leader of our Wisconsin Senate, who is quite interested in it. So we think that it's possible. But in the short term, it's really making a difference in terms of bringing more students in. Cindy was just telling me that one reason is that parents are more willing to support their children going into teaching if they don't have to take out loans to pay the tuition. And I just love the whole idea of, you pledge to stay, we pledge to pay. It just sounds right to me. So I wanted to just tell you a little bit about that program. If you're interested in more details, just go to Teacher Pledge on our website. There's all sorts of details about it. And we're really thrilled that in particular, the physical education students have from the very beginning been kind of early adopters of the Teacher Pledge, and we're really happy about that. I also want to say that one of the reasons that the numbers have gone up from 23 to 40 is that this is a really great PE program. We just learned that the Ohio State is canceling their PE program. There are other, which is terrible, right? There are other places around the country that don't have PE programs that are growing. In fact, they're shrinking or they're going away. But the reason ours is growing, in addition to the Teacher Pledge, is because it's such an excellent program. And that's because in large part of Cindy and her colleagues in the Department of Kinesiology. I can tell you that during COVID, we had schools in Madison that didn't close for very much time at all. And we needed to have student teachers in PE out student teaching with, you cannot student teach in PE via Zoom very well. That's not going to help. And so one of the things that Cindy so brilliantly did was arrange for a school in Madison that was staying open in person for them to be the host of all of the student teachers. The teachers at that school were thrilled. It gave our students a wonderful experience. And that really made a difference. But I think what's happening day in, day out of the program is what causes students to want to come into the program. And obviously the legacy of the program is really strong, as evidenced by the fact that you're all here. So I just want to say thank you for being here. Bravo to the program. And in particular, I want you to recognize how much the leadership of the School of Education acknowledges and appreciates the work of Cindy and the others in the Department of Kinesiology who are putting all of this on. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much. I know you're running around today. There's so much going on this weekend, so we really appreciate your time. Thank you. Okay, listen, you have work to do. I know you're talking. I know you're having great conversations, but there's nothing on my chart. So as you are hearing things, UW students, there's a marker up here. You get up here and I would say for each table, at least two of the traditions that you're hearing, two of the ideas that you really like, put them up there. And then we'll go to work and we'll start incorporating them. Do you need a time limit? Because I'll give it to you. You need it? All right, you have 10 minutes. Go. All right. People. Nice job. Nice job on the chart. This is amazing. Here's the only thing, this is the last thing I want to do before I let you just enjoy the company of one another is, every table is gonna have to tell one story. So think about the stories that you wrote up here, the traditions that you put up here, you're gonna have to agree on which one you want to tell. You'll have one person stand up and tell that story, or they can come up here if they want to and tell the story, just as sometimes when I look at goat games, I know what that means. But not everybody else in the room does. So take a second and figure out who wants to tell the story, and then do you mind coming up to tell it? Are you okay? Yep. Of course, Dan. Okay, so everybody got one? You guys have one? Gentlemen? David, are you gonna be the spokesperson? Joellen? You're good?
Connor, are you still there?
Who's gonna speak at Tony Tigers?
Yes.
Is Connor still there?
Is it you, Brendan? Yeah, okay. Okay, let's do this, let's start with this table right here. And have you
I was
just
gonna
come on
say,
and tell us one
I think I
story.
may very well leave, but I need to let them know I will be leaving.
Okay, I'll let them know.
Because I've been here from the very beginning, but thanks to Cindy, I figured out how to do Zoom.
Good. That's great.
Okay, well, I enjoyed all of it and I'm glad we got a chance to share all these things from several generations.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
The different classes, the seniors and the sophomores would team up and the juniors and freshmen would be together. And we had this stuffed goat and we'd hide it someplace in Lathrop Hall. And whatever team ended up with that or without the goat, at the end time, the end of the goat games, they were the one that won the goat games and the honor and everything. So this goes along with the overnight, one of the overnight stays that I know about is, our group 1 year stayed in the locker room overnight. So the other team wouldn't have a chance to find it and overnight hid the goat in a wall, a hole in the wall in the gym, second floor gym in Lathrop Hall. Put the board back in over the top and they never found it until the next day and we had to reveal where the goat was. So we were the winners, but we stayed overnight and surprised the custodian as in Lathrop Hall.
So I tell the bottom story. And if I get it wrong, too bad. It's one of those hearing things, you know, you pass the story along. I can tell the story the way I heard it. Apparently, Bonnie, was it in the 60s, Bonnie? In the 60s, the students would go to the faculty's home early in the morning to say they're taking them out for breakfast. So one morning, they apparently went to Bonnie's house and very early, she wasn't home. And where was Bonnie? Apparently at 4:30 a.m. she went bird watching. Really, Bonnie? So the students apparently gave her a hard time that she wasn't home for them to surprise her and take her out for breakfast. Did you? Joellen is making her way up to the podium. I just want to say thank you for this. At some point, I couldn't keep up with the questions that people were asking, and I couldn't do the practice on okay, so I told her that and so, and it was a lot of fun.
I started the university in '68, and at that time, I guess it was class 121, it was mandated course for everyone in the entire university had to take this class. And the two things I remember most about it was they worked on your posture and then taught you the shot technique. And the shot technique is what we put on the board. I actually started nursing and I transferred as a junior into physical education. And I had tested out of having to take this class as a freshman, but then as a junior, I had to take it. But the thing that impressed all of us at our table that had to do the shot technique is we're still using it 50 years later. I can drop my blood pressure 20 points every time I go to the doctor just by, thinking through it. I don't take the position, but doing the basic technique of relaxation and breathing. And it's really useful. It's too bad they don't teach it anymore. It is on the board.
Hello, everyone. Our table mate left, but she was telling us about the time of the Vietnam War. I'm gonna guess some of you remember that well. I do not. But she was telling us about how they had shut down school for I think she said 3 to 4 weeks, and they had this huge paper, but they also didn't have laptops at the time, so they couldn't work at home with it. So their teacher had said that they just could submit whatever it was that they wrote about. They just had to give it the best of their ability, get as far as they could with it, submit it. And so I thought that was very impactful to hear that they, just had to take what they could and gave it the best.
Dan, did you hear a story back there you want to share?
It would be very short.
Bring it up.
I spent most of the time talking with Tammy and Wade back there. And Tammy had come to the university for a quality education, like all of you did too. But she also came to the university in the hopes of finding a husband. And to her delight, that worked out. I'm cutting this all short because I couldn't do the details, the honor that she would be able to. But she graduated with an MS and an MRS.
Yeah, how many of the rest of you got married while you were here? Got engaged, met your people? There you go. Nice. Did you get married here? You want to tell your story about getting engaged on the track of Lathrop?
Hello, everyone. I'm Peggy Mueller. I was Peggy Robb when I came here in 1964. And I'm from Canada, where competitive athletics at that time were very popular and well taught in the schools. I came down here to a movement exploration experience. I was a grad student from 64 to 66. And I also came down here to get my MS and ended up with an MRS degree. Mine was kind of special in that I was at the time supervisor, I was a research assistant for Betty Mortimer. And at the time, I was also making some money to live, supervising intramural volleyball. There was volleyball going on in the gym and I was up on the balcony. My boyfriend at the time came in, got down, and I was standing on the track, got down on his knee and proposed to me, and I ended up with my ring at the time. So I was in Lathrop Hall.
So speaking of perfect marriages, I feel like this has been a perfect marriage, right? We have the alums who can tell all their stories and talk about their experiences and all they learned. And you have the younger new students who can take all of those really great traditions and good stories. And then we promise we will consider all of these as we move forward. I especially like feeding staff and faculty, really like that. It's really great. Yeah. But thank you for your time here today. I want to honor your time and make sure that you have some more time to just visit if you like. So we'll end our official program here. Feel free to stay as long as you like. There are snacks in the back. If you need to switch tables because you haven't spoken to someone that you wanted to, go ahead and do that. And then when people are ready to start heading out, we'll fire up that shuttle and get you back to St. James parking lot again. So, but thank you very much. Thanks.